Hi, welcome to CastAndLoose Living Room. I am here today with Maybe Burke. Hi, Maybe. Hi. Maybe is a director, choreographer, writer, designer, and script consultant, and former stage manager and production manager. There are a lot of titles, both former and current.
I wear many hats, yes.
You might know Maybe from the Transliteracy Project, and if you don't, you need to start watching those videos, or Love Letters to Nobody. You might not know them from their one-person production of Seussical the Musical. Maybe, where can we see your one-person production of Seussical the Musical?
In my parents' basement
I was going to
on Long Island.
I was going to say, is this like a mirror experience? Maybe is going to read some breakdowns for us today. They have not seen these breakdowns yet, so that you as the audience get to experience how terrible they are in real time along with Maybe. When I asked Maybe what they'd like to talk about today, they said, and I quote,
"Oh God,
I'm here for all of it, but I definitely want you to find some fucked up trans castings." And though I appreciate Maybe's intersectional approach, I found so many terrible breakdowns in my collection on trans identity and gender identity that I decided we needed to stick with the theme. If that's
surprised
okay.
there's so many.
I know, who knew? So, not all breakdowns which regard gender identity are offensive necessarily. Sometimes they're just hilarious. This may be my favorite character name of all time.
Gender ambiguous water gun person.
Yes.
18 to 28 years old, male or female. A person who greets a very straight-laced and corporate newcomer into a communal house.
Though it begs the question, if the character is gender ambiguous, why define it within a binary on the breakdown?
It also begs the question if, like, the person is gender ambiguous or if the water gun is gender ambiguous.
Fair question. That's amazing. I hadn't even thought of that. Okay. Sometimes authors seem delightfully muddled in what they're looking for in a character's identity.
Male number 7.
Great.
Man in his 30s to 40s, butch, gay, and does great impersonations.
Great.
Did we mention female? Think Cher.
But more often I see a range of subtle to not so subtle problems in breakdowns when it comes to trans and non-binary identity. Maybe since you are a trans advocate and literacy consultant, I thought we should play a game called Maybe You Could Tell Us What's Wrong. I'm going to give you some breakdowns and you tell us what's wrong. Fair? Okay. First, we have a writer who seems to be confused by their parts of speech. Maybe you could tell us what's wrong.
Nightclub transgender. 25 to 33 years old, very specific.
Yeah. Black,
African American, Caucasian, Hispanic, male or female. Colorful nightclubbing transgender.
Maybe tell us what's wrong.
So transgender is an adjective.
Yes.
Adjectives are words you use to really describe things, and I'm quoting Schoolhouse Rock there. You're looking for a transgender person,
right? Not
a transgender.
Yeah.
Because you can't look for an adjective.
This next one is a little more subtle and involves a more nuanced understanding of terms and definitions. Maybe you could tell us what's wrong.
Harry, 25 to 30 years old, all ethnicities female, gay or non-binary.
Now, gay or non-binary, are those two things in the same category?
No. A person can be both of those things.
Right.
People can use the words they want to define themselves. But also, if somebody is coming in and they're non-binary, they're not going to be female most of the time.
Well,
they're not going to use that word for themselves.
Well, and also if you could talk about the difference between sexuality versus gender identity, that these are not necessarily the same things.
Looks like this person is looking for a butch-presenting lesbian and or a non-binary transmasculine person. If they just said that, they'd be fine. The problem is that there are a lot of gay women who do blur gender lines and don't conform to like the typical standards of beauty for women. But that is a gender presentation that is not linked to the sexuality. I don't know if Harry necessarily identifies as gay and that's important to the character, or if they're just looking for like a gay look, because you can't look gay.
Right.
That's not a thing.
Right.
You can look non-binary.
Internal experience.
That's a thing.
Yeah.
You can present your gender identity. You can't really present your sexuality. I mean, you can present your sexuality, but there's a lot else going on there.
Yeah. I think this one is one of those breakdowns where I'm like, I think your heart was in the right place. You just didn't do enough research necessarily.
Yeah, you did not watch the Transliteracy Project.
Okay. But then there are more glaringly problematic breakdowns. Maybe tell us what's wrong.
Tallulah.
Mm-hmm.
Male.
Meaningful clear of the throat.
Transsexual cross-dresser. 25 to 35. Principal. At least they're leading off.
Great.
Tallulah is a male to female transsexual who is as sassy as she is bitchy. If the light is right, she can be quite beautiful. But to the observant eye, she isn't fooling anyone. So, let's go piece by piece here.
Great.
First of all, a lot of these are things that people could identify with, and do identify with. However, a lot of what's being said here is what I call in-community language, and things that, like, trans folks can say to each other to, like, identify themselves, but, like, if you haven't gotten permission from a person to refer to them that way, you don't.
Yeah.
Transsexual is just an outdated term at this point because too often it's confused for being about sexuality or focusing on a person's genitalia. So, like, we've replaced that with transgender for the most part. There's still people who use transsexual.
Yeah.
But, like, in a casting breakdown, if I see the word transsexual, I go away.
Yeah.
Crossdresser is in a similar boat. That's just also a different thing.
Yeah.
Like, trans women are not cross-dressing unless they're dressing as men.
Yeah.
That would be a trans woman cross-dressing. Similar, male to female is a thing folks use a lot of times, but it's, again, in community language that I'm like, MTF and FTM are things that people use to define themselves, but I would never use that to define somebody without their express permission. If the light is right, she can be beautiful. Isn't that true of all of us?
Right.
Right. Find your light, girls. Or people. The she isn't fooling anyone. That's violent. That's
a great word to use.
An aggression. Like, that's not even a microaggression, that is a macroaggression. Like,
Yeah.
that is. I have not read the script. I'm looking at this for the first time, and I can tell you that Tallulah is probably murdered in the script.
Right.
And or a sex worker.
Yep. Yeah.
And though that's a very true experience for a lot of trans folks and things, this was clearly not written by a trans person.
Yeah.
And it's not your story to tell, and you can't really get the nuance and the complexity of what that actually looks like if this is how you view the person.
Yeah, violent is such a good word. It's such an aggressive and violent thing to say about someone. And sometimes I feel like they forget that a human being is reading this and determining whether they themselves fit this role.
And whenever the word beautiful is in a breakdown, unless it's like, does not have to be.
Right.
Like, I'm just like, what?
But even does not have to be means that you're still basing, there's some subjective concept out in the world.
That beautiful is
that is a thing. Yeah. Thank you for that. That was a really strong piece-by-piece analysis. Okay.
Thank you.
To make sure trans men are included in the fun.
Oh,
maybe...
I love when trans men are included in the fun.
So do I. Maybe tell us what is wrong.
Sorry for fetishizing a community I don't represent. Mr. Addison. This is in air quotes, a man in his 40s. Specifically seeking transgender actor. I got that from the quotation marks.
Yeah.
Mr. Addison is pathetic, but perhaps not always so. When he's sober, he seeks solace in a bottle. Wait, what?
Mm-hmm. You got it right, yes.
When he's drunk, he seeks solace in the arms of a young whore.
A whore.
He's never sober. I have been told many times that it's, like, cute that I identify a certain way, but I'm really another thing. And that's what I get from quotation marks around an identity. We were having a conversation before about the term like preferred pronouns and the fact that when you ask somebody what pronouns they prefer, you're insinuating that it's an option and that it's not legitimately who they are and what is going on.
Yeah.
That I liken that to the quotation marks around man, being that you're looking for somebody that you don't believe is a man, no matter whether or not they believe it.
And lastly, this is a short punch of an offense, proving a problem not only in its language, but the narrative of the whole piece. Maybe tell us what's wrong. Just the character name.
Surprise! I dropped the paper in shock. Surprise! This transgender female has a real, again, quotation marks, surprise for a few of the guys. So the surprise is her dick. You're looking for the gotcha moment, the deception, the person who did not tell their partner they were trans until they had sex with them.
Yeah.
Which is a person's right to do. You do not have to reveal anything about yourself. You're leaving out the fact that not all trans women have dicks. And also just the fact that, like, we are so tired of talking about our genitals and, like, being used for shock value. And as a surprise, you literally named your character Surprise. Like, that is...
Yeah.
Who did you think was going to show up to that audition?
Right. Especially because you are an advocate and you're a literacy educator.
Yes.
What are things that producers and people running a room, people running an audition, people running a rehearsal, simple things, simple and non-simple things that they can do to be, you call it a cis assist, or to be
Shakina
a good...
Mayfack called it a cis assist.
Awesome.
Shakina started cis assist.
That's, I kind of love that. Yeah.
Sorry, I heard it at least.
But that you can be an advocate in any room.
Not doing any
Don't
of
do
this.
these.
Call people what they want to be called. And if you don't know what somebody wants to be called, figure it out.
Yeah.
Either listen to people that are close to them, but like if we're in a room and like I'm meeting you for the first time, ask somebody their pronouns. Ask somebody what they're comfortable doing. At this point, if you're not aware of the trans community and you're trying to write a role for a trans person and writing this breakdown, Google it. There's literally a wiki gender, like a Wikipedia page specific for gender identities.
Yeah.
Like, do your homework. Don't expect us to come in and teach you and fix things for you. A lot of times, folks ask me to come in on a project and work as an actor, but also fix and change the script.
Right.
Pay those people. Make sure that you are actively contributing to the artists that you are trying to represent. Being an ally is not about being right all of the time. It's not being perfect and showing that you did the thing and you like got a trans person in the room. It's about listening to that person, figuring out what they need, and if you mess up, apologize, correct yourself, and move on. And by move on, I don't mean move on and do it again. I mean move on and do better.
Yeah. And something we've talked about, there are steps in terms of normalization that we can do. Like, I can put pronouns on my resume to just make it a normalized situation that we're always considering it's not an assumption of what your pronouns would be. Or that I can, as a producer, when I run a room, everyone starts by giving pronouns so that no one is singled out by that experience.
Which I have been in a room where I've been asked my pronouns and then realized that I was the only person in that room that was asked my pronouns. And there were other people in that room who were using pronouns that people didn't think they would be using.
Right.
And I was like...
Right, and there was a simple way to have solved that.
You only went with the visibly trans person.
Yeah. Well, in terms of hiring you as a script consultant, how do we find you?
You can find me on maybeburke.com, social media at @BelieveInMaybe. I have it tattooed on me, but it's going to be upside down.
Oh, nice.
Really, just look up Maybe Burke. All that comes up is me and Maybelline if you type in Maybe, so...
If you Google Rosenberg, you just get me and a bunch of traitors to society. Well, on that note... Thank you so much, my love. And thank you so much for watching. Take care of each other and be professional.